99% of people are wrong about Bitcoin. What? What are you saying? Guys, come on. It's not meant to be real. It's just inflammatory. 99% of people are wrong about Bitcoin. That's right. I said it. I'm the contrarian. Many of us are quick to criticize institutions for buying Bitcoin. But have you ever thought about it critically? I bet not.
It's the summer of paper Bitcoin.
Are you now asking yourself what paper Bitcoin is? With all this news about companies buying up the Bitcoin like Strategy and BlackRock, why isn't the price just skyrocketing? I wonder. And for you folks that are holding stocks in Bitcoin treasury companies like Strategy or BlackRock, you're going to want to stick around to the end of this video. Today, I want to break down what you might be missing about institutional adoption of Bitcoin and why paper Bitcoin summer might be here to stay.
Count me in for paper Bitcoin summer! Count me in for paper Bitcoin summer!
I'm freshly shaved. This is Beyond Bitcoin. Let's go.
Paper Bitcoin summer? Yeah, count me in.
Do you ever wonder how all this demand is coming into Bitcoin, but the price is staying flat? I bet you wonder that all the time. Are you thinking that? Real or paper, more and more companies, institutions, and treasuries are placing Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Oh, and by the way, if you're this far along in the video and you still don't understand what paper Bitcoin is, I have a deeper dive into the subject somewhere up here. But the short answer is paper Bitcoin is just a Bitcoin derivative, something like Strategy's MSTR or BlackRock's IBIT ETF. I spoke with my good friend Fundamentals on the subject, who's an actuary. He manages investment risks for publicly traded companies. He recently wrote a book titled Bitcoin for Institutions, where he makes a strong case for what executives and company financiers need to know before they even think about getting into Bitcoin. Link in the description below. The number one issue that companies need to understand before getting into Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is for individuals first. Take a look.
It's the wants and needs of individuals that give Bitcoin value. And at least that's how it really occurred to me, and that's how I got it. I spend a lot of time in the first section of the book explaining why individuals are way better than institutions at holding Bitcoin. And I'd say good luck. Good luck married couple competing with an individual, okay? You add one person to the mix, and you've now challenged the ability to hodl significantly. You add a third person, you're really going against the odds now. And a part of the reason is because, and this is, I really get into this, it requires being unreasonable and irrational. You have to have the ability to say, I understand what everyone in the world is saying, but I believe something different, and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And it's much easier for one person to do that than a partnership or a tertiary ship or 4 or 5, you name it, right? Now, you add governance, you add a board, you add accountability. Oh my God. Forget Bitcoin. You can forget about it. This is my view, right? This was my view going into writing the book. Like, you can just really forget about it if you're going to think you're going to get an organization to agree on holding Bitcoin for a long period of time. I mean, there's just too many things that are going to happen that are going to cause an organization to dump their Bitcoin, right? It's going to go down. It's going to go up. Like, all of these things. And if you're not like really clear in your conviction and you don't have the ability to be unreasonable and to tell everybody to go F themselves, you're probably not going to hold your Bitcoin. So this is a big challenge for institutions. And when I say Bitcoin for institutions, this is really where I'm coming from. What do you really need to know? And so you really want to understand how, like, well, what are the advantages that individuals have over you? Well, for one, they have way longer time horizons. Time horizon for companies is literally a quarter long. You have to be willing to do something for a long period of time to be able to learn how to do it. And individuals have that horizon. Institutions do not. Institutions should, but because of, this is like what fiat did to institutions. Institutions that are corrupted by fiat, I should say, have very short time horizons. They should have the ability to look beyond the problems of an individual, but they don't. Individuals can think much longer out in the future. They can say, you know what, I know I don't need this now, but I'm going to thank myself one day for doing this. There's nobody in an institution that's governed that ever can say that. You know, it's what did you do last quarter? Period. End of story.
The issue for many Bitcoiners and people in this space is that paper Bitcoin is completely against the ethos of what Bitcoin stands for. By issuing paper Bitcoin, companies can give multiple claims on the same Bitcoin in their balance sheet, like fractional reserve banking. This becomes a huge problem when you consider Bitcoin's supply cap at 21 million coins. And though this is true and paper Bitcoin has the potential of being an enormous problem in the Bitcoin space, I think many of us are overlooking the problems that paper Bitcoin solves. And that's institutional exposure and institutional custody. Two biggies. What do you mean by institutional exposure and institutional custody? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'll answer that question right after this. These past few years have been crazy for natural disasters, solar flares, and power grid failures. I bet you want to be prepared for all that, right? When your lines of communication are cut by traditional means, sat123.com is there. Sat123.com offers a variety of satellite phones, Faraday bags, and power solutions for those times of crisis, so you can reach your loved ones or local agencies in a time of need. Go to sat123.com and use the promo code SIMPLY for 15% off your purchase. 15%, wow, that's pretty good. Disaster comes at you fast, but with sat123.com, you will be prepared.
I think that one of the problems that exist right now is that companies think that the only way to get into Bitcoin is to hold it on their treasury, which is really asking a company to take a lot more risk than they've thought about. Okay, it's a big, big, big leap. I mean, think about it. Michael Saylor does it with his company, and literally zero S&P 500 companies have followed him. There's zero today. Now, I get after a year or 2 years, at the end of 22, nobody wanted to follow him. But, I mean, this is obviously one of the most successful gambits anyone's ever done. And yet still no company is ready to do this. It is a giant leap for the way they think about risk. Paper Bitcoin has counterparty credit risk. Real Bitcoin does not. If you're entering as a rookie and don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to have to accept the counterparty risk of a custodian and trust an ETF, which is what we would all affectionately call a paper Bitcoin. However, I think that competition and the market will end up driving companies to hold real Bitcoin. The way I can really look a lot better than my competitor, who looks the same as me, is by taking it into self-custody and removing the counterparty credit risk and probably reduce cap. At that time, we'll maybe have some regulation that understands these dynamics, and capital charges should be less for holding real Bitcoin rather than a version of Bitcoin that adds counterparty risk. Like, look, Fidelity has a first mover advantage in holding their own keys. Now, just because they hold their own keys doesn't mean they're better than BlackRock. We don't know because nobody that I'm aware of has looked at their custody and done an audit. Logic would just say that they've been doing this a very long time and they're probably better. And they don't have the counterparty risk. They have the event risk of losing their keys. BlackRock has the event risk of Coinbase losing the keys and the counterparty risk. Look, you have to crawl before you can walk, and you have to walk before you can run. So a company that knows nothing about Bitcoin is going to have to. They can't just hold a bunch of Bitcoin recklessly and not know what they're doing. So they're going to have to take a graduated approach. So Bitcoin has no counterparty risk. Bitcoin has no monetary policy risk. They're far less risky than bonds, but there's the event risk of losing keys that is very real. Like, almost the first thing I did after I bought my first Bitcoin was I wrote an essay called Taming the Bitcoin Bull. It was about how I was so bullish about Bitcoin, but I had this one problem as an actuary and a risk manager. It was this probability of total loss. And I think that's the thing that makes Bitcoiners strong, is living with that fear, right? That's the power that holding your keys gets you. It's like a hormetic stress. But companies don't necessarily benefit from that stress. You know what I mean? Like, you become better. Like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's not necessarily true for companies. Like, what doesn't kill you today will probably kill you tomorrow. It's a series of trade-offs, and companies need a different set of trade-offs than individuals. It's the individuals screaming about paper Bitcoin, but they're fine. They're not affected by paper Bitcoin. Companies just don't have, they need a different set of trade-offs to do what they want to do. And the fact is, individuals work at companies and they have FOMO and they want Bitcoin exposure.
The flock to paper Bitcoin is more about risk evaluation. As we all know, there's a number of risks involved with self-custody of Bitcoin. And these risks are much easier to mitigate if you're an individual and not an institution. In the eyes of Bitcoin, an institution or an individual, it's all the same thing. But we all know that institutions are not individuals. They don't have the same incentives. They don't have the same mobility, flexibility, speed, or need of Bitcoin. For many institutions, the choice to put Bitcoin on their balance sheets is simply just for the gains alone.
An individual values Bitcoin much more than an institution. An individual sees returns, but also freedom, potentially privacy, potentially the type of optionality to run away or to escape a tyrannical, there's all kinds of reasons an individual has to want Bitcoin. Whereas for institutions, it's mostly just return. And so to me, I'd say an institution is never going to value Bitcoin as highly as an individual is. And if they have to understand that Bitcoin is much more valuable than they think it is. And what gives it value are things that they don't necessarily care about. And as long as they understand that, I think when Michael Saylor was creating his Bitcoin treasury, I think he understood that. Even though to him now, Bitcoin is not even something you want to spend. So he has a very, very limited view of what Bitcoin's value is. I personally probably value it 20 times more than he does. And so at the end of the day, as much as he will be a buyer forever, individuals will always outbid him because they've just value it more. Individuals are the golden goose that give Bitcoin its value. And failure to understand this could be fatal.
An individual has the ability to act irrationally and independently. And an individual does not have a portfolio full of unfunded liabilities for their pensions. On the flip side of that, an institution is disincentivized to hold their keys, as it comes with a significant event risk of losing those keys. By holding their own keys, they put themselves at all kinds of risks that they may not be ready for, be it loss due to negligence, user error, miscommunication, or mismanagement, or simply just a bad actor within the institution. And I hate to break it to you, but for institutions, these kinds of risks are inexcusable. So custodians for institutions absolutely make sense. And custodians mean paper Bitcoin.
I am not even in the world of talking to current Bitcoiners. And when we talk about people who have no exposure to Bitcoin, okay, paper Bitcoin for them is a stepping stone to solving problems. It's solving problems for BlackRock. It's solving problems for Michael Saylor. And it can solve problems for companies today without waiting really 10, 15 years for the corporate landscape to really understand what Bitcoin is. Paper Bitcoin is not like paper gold. I think when people hear paper X, they think, okay, it was once a hard money and now it is no longer because of the ability to paper. And it is really it's really the death knell for gold. Bitcoin's different, but paper Bitcoin doesn't necessarily imply fractional reserving. It doesn't necessarily imply that. It doesn't mean it won't happen. So let me say something a little further about that and why I think the BlackRock story is important. BlackRock spent their entire existence talking about saying it was for criminals, and then one day, all of a sudden, they're here. Do you think that they endured this embarrassment and shame for some higher fees or some higher returns? If that were true, you would have somebody in the S&P following Michael Saylor's strategy. The truth is, it's not enough. Ordinary fees and returns are not enough to get a company involved. BlackRock is involved because of existential reasons. I strongly believe they will behave themselves until this mission is complete. I think we already know who the before Bitcoin version of Larry Fink was that he's going to revert to. But while he's here solving the problem, I do believe they're going to do what they have to do to play in the sandbox. They're not going to put it at risk. I don't think they're going to risk what they need to get done in their company just to make a few bucks manipulating the Bitcoin market. I think that's a really low signal Like it's understandable that people would worry about that, and they should. You should worry about that. But I do think BlackRock is smart enough to have their eye. I think their eye is on the prize. I believe they're keeping Coinbase in line. I believe they're preventing manipulation. I just think I understand BlackRock because of my experience in my career. I just understand what they're trying to do. And my conviction is very high as a Bitcoiner as a result of it. And it's okay that we have some nice things now because of BlackRock. Doesn't mean you should ever trust them, but you should trust their incentives. And right now, their incentive is to fix a bond portfolio that needs to be converted into Bitcoin. It's probably going to take 5 to 10 years at least to get done before they can start, before mischief starts.
By this logic, BlackRock actually isn't incentivized to manipulate this asset class at this stage. BlackRock actually has a critical problem with their business, a structural problem, really. And that is that the risk-free asset that they use, the bonds, is actually a lot more risky than they thought. In fact, their risk-free asset could end up unwinding their entire company. And so, enter Coinbase. Coinbase custodies Bitcoin for all kinds of institutions as well as retail investors. What the financial products like the IBIT ETF or MSTR accomplish are the solutions to this issue of wanting to invest in this asset class, but not wanting the risks involved with holding their own keys. In a way, BlackRock actually keeps Coinbase in check. The financial weight of the world is literally on Coinbase's shoulders, so it makes sense that they'll shore up all their walls and be able to satisfy claims for their biggest clients. Now, with all this talk about paper Bitcoin, many Bitcoiners will be shouting at the screen and leaving their toxic comments. So toxic. But the sweet truth of the matter is that if you hold your own keys, then you don't really need to be concerned about paper Bitcoin at all. Now, do you? Let's be real. If you're an individual Bitcoiner and you're in it solely for the gains, well, you kind of need the institutions for the NGU. But the institutions need paper Bitcoin for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. And if you're a diehard maxi that cares about freedom and sound money, then by holding your own keys, you are unaffected by paper Bitcoin. That's like a joke to you. So if you're out there in the jungles of social media and you're scared that paper Bitcoin summer is going to turn into winter, all you got to do, my friend, is custody your own Bitcoin and stay humble. Anyway, that's our show for today. But all this talk about paper Bitcoin makes me want to mine it myself. But I don't have a bunch of mining rigs or a space to mine or the electricity costs that would warrant such a investment. With Sazmining.com, you don't have to wire up a warehouse or babysit humming rigs. No. They place your ASIC on renewable powered farms, handle the maintenance, and stream the sats straight to your wallet. So you're stacking and not stressing. Think of it as a set it and forget it DCA. Every block adds a little bit more sound money that you earn and not bought. If you believe in sovereignty, Sazmining turns that belief into hash rate. Claim your plot on Bitcoin Island. Go to Sazmining.com and book a call with one of their expert team members today so you can start mining immediately. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, you want to see more, make sure you drop a like below. It really supports the channel. Or you can hit subscribe to the Simply Bitcoin channel for more content like this. We're coming out with it every single day of the week. That's 7 days, I think, last time I checked. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell. Also supports the channel. Anyway, I'm Oceans. This is Beyond Bitcoin. Until next time.